Crypto and digital assets in the U.S. has got a market cap of around $1.1 trillion right now. It's been there for a bit. Do you acknowledge that this asset class has staying power in the U.S. economy?
It appears to have some staying power. Of course, that 2.1 trillion was, what was that a year ago? A lot higher.
Yeah, it's had some volatility in large measure due to the lack of legal clarity, and so hopefully this committee will help that quite a lot here this summer with at least two bills, one on stable coins and one on market structure, and it'll be clear not just for Congress but for regulators, including Chairman Gensler, and obviously market participants, whether they're forming the ideas or investing in the ideas or participating in the activities.
I mean, need I even say more? Because I could. As Jerome Powell has been going absolutely crazy on crypto, and this is right on cue. Now, what he said, take a look at this. The Jerome Powell Fed chairman sees stablecoins as a form of money. And like the video stated, the Bitcoin and crypto asset class appears to have some staying power in the US economy. And there comes this principle we've been describing for a little while. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. Well, the situation right now is worthy of a like. Let me quickly say that. If you've not pressed that like button yet, right now is your best time to do so, as it helps these videos out greatly. But also, things are coming together. And I've never been as convinced that you, right now, watching this video, are being lied to like crazy, it's unimaginable, as ever before. Let me show you guys a couple different things. First of all, it is really funny that all of a sudden right now, after all these major guys file for their ETFs, that the SEC Investor Advisory Committee will meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. to discuss single stock ETFs. And hey, ignore all these important things, talk about some shenanigans. But again, that is why we are putting over on Twitter, #FireGaryGensler. But I do believe this single stock ETFs point is quite interesting because at the end of the day, potentially the SEC might encompass the whole Bitcoin ETF by calling it a single stock ETF, and that's just something interesting I think about. Anyway, like I said, they've all of a sudden decided that they see stablecoins as a form of money. And like I stated, at the same time, so many things are happening. Stablecoin issuer Circle has started buying US Treasury bills with its BlackRock managed USDC reserve fund after ditching all holdings for overnight repos in the US debt ceiling standoff. But also, BlackRock shows up and Bitcoin is up 20% in a week. People forget that Bitcoin went from $0 to nearly $1 trillion in market cap with almost no institutional participation. If retail investors were good for $1 trillion, what do you think happens when the deep pockets really come to play? I think indeed that all these funds, Invesco, WisdomTree, and Bitwise, and even more, coming in to play for the Bitcoin ETF shows, first of all, the biggest middle finger to the SEC imaginable, because it's basically a matter of, hey, you can't deny BlackRock, you're not going to do that, so we're also going to file for it yet again, but double, because I also think that the SEC and BlackRock are playing under the same hood for all the choices that are made on the sidelines, with again Chair Jerome Powell now coming out all of a sudden with these bullish statements. And again, things like this make a lot of sense. Look what the Russia Today guy has to say, but just think about this for a little bit. As I keep telling you guys, the SEC swept away the independent crypto exchanges and players to make room for BlackRock, WisdomTree, Fidelity, etc. to get into Bitcoin. XRP ain't gonna win their case. You know, this first part I agreed with. I still believe that the SEC tried to get away with all these exchanges that people have come to know and love, and they created a lot of fear so these major funds could come in hot. But I do believe that once these major funds come in hot, which is right now, that the moment that Ripple wins, which I think is inevitable, they're also going to be adapting that technology quickly, because understand what we even described yesterday. The IMF has looked at Ripple, looked at their technology, looked at XRP, and was like, you know what? That's something we like. That's something we want to get involved with. And later on today, probably, okay, for me it's today because right now it's 4 a.m. while I'm recording this. And I'm going to probably record this at, like 1 p.m. But later on, I'll be talking more about some of these connections that I think are just so crazy. About how Hinman, China, Ethereum, and it's all connected. We found even more gold in the whole pit. It's absolutely wild. So stick around for that. But it just makes more and more sense to me how this was all just one big manipulated move. And they tried to push XRP away as well for a greater purpose. But specifically here, BlackRock and all that stuff, I don't think it's an accident. I don't think these comments from Chair Jerome Powell are an accident. I don't think so. It's all a little bit too coincidental for that, it seems. He says XRP ain't gonna win its case. Again, we disagree. Screw this guy. This was never about the law. XRP was marked for death, and Gary Gensler's job is to take it out. In El Salvador, we just got rid of all this nonsense with a new law that says Bitcoin is money, everything else is an unregistered security. We're building Bitcoin country. Join us. This is kind of funny. This article states, Ripple can't win against the SEC as XRP is marked for death, says expert. Now that is something which I think is funny. Why in the world would you call Max Kaiser an expert? In what exactly, huh? I must tell you again that his whole statement doesn't really make a lot of sense from any perspective. I mean, let's just hypothesize here that he's taking the stance of, okay, the SEC is trying to get rid of these unregistered parties, which make up a central integral part of the crypto space like Binance and like Coinbase, to make room for the guys like BlackRock, WisdomTree, whatever. I'd first of all like to assert then, well, take a look at those guys. WisdomTree, for example, one of those guys in there, is part of Ripple's board, at least was part of Ripple's board. Why, how, what is then that philosophy of letting them in when they are literally also acting in Ripple's best interest and will probably be the first or among the first, the way I see things, to file for an XRP ETF the moment that we get the clarity and the moment that we get approval? And then another question I'd like to say is, does he think Gary Gensler is completely correct? Gary's job to take it out. Well, Gary is also not really a big fan of these or approving these ETFs. So what? Or is he calling all these exchanges bad? Which could be. I don't believe he might not be the guy in front of exchanges. He might be saying, no, they're all bad. But then is all this institutional money good for Bitcoin? It kind of is a contradictory, because think about it. The true vision of Bitcoin, peer-to-peer money or so, why would you need institutional grade money for that? What's the benefit in banks, for example, adapting or buying loads of Bitcoin? You could even argue that it's actually a negative thing if the banks are stacking it all up, because that would make it more difficult for an actual peer-to-peer economy if the price goes up so much because the banks just control so much of it and they have to buy it from the markets and then just potentially hold it on like gold. Anyway, what things are moving really fast all around the world, I'd like to say, but specifically in the US. No, let me rephrase that. While things are moving really fast right now in the United States, things are also moving pretty fast along the world. We've seen some new rules come up in the UK. We've seen some struggles with Binance in France, Netherlands, etc. But that is all progress because they're looking into it and they're looking into laws. Singapore's financial regulator released a white paper outlining common protocol for digital money, which comes a couple days after Indonesia also decided to look into cryptos a little bit further and give a lot of approvals. You know why I like this specific announcement, though, coming from Singapore? Well, to be a little bit more specific, take a look at what it says right here. The white paper was developed in collaboration with the IMF and a couple of others like the Bank of Italia, Bank of Korea, Amazon, Onyx with JP Morgan, and several other industry players. But specifically, right, the one we've just found out has written a paper, at least is on their website has a paper with XRP on there being a currency. It's kind of funny. And then that is coming along, especially if you think about how part of this is all about CBDCs, which again is also in Ripple's alley, tokenized bank deposits, stablecoins, everything that it would make sense to be connected to Ripple for, basically. I just thought that was kind of funny. But it's also interesting to me that they're working with Amazon on this. So they've collaborated on this digital money white paper together with Amazon. Could they be cooking up something crazy coming up shortly? Like I stated, right now the market is in a crazy enthusiasm phase where people are just anticipating that the moment that BlackRock gets the approval, which we almost think is inevitable, things are going to start moving really, really fast. Because if the SEC approves BlackRock, they can't have any reason to reject others. And BlackRock has such a good rate of approval that most likely things are going to go in a little bit of a spiral. GBTC might not be doing so well anymore. They might be bought by Fidelity, which again would place a lot of the current institutional money also in the hands of Fidelity, which then basically put them higher up on the ranking for crypto adopters of sorts, which we could start talking about for hours. But the most important point here, the most critical point is the moment that the ETF gets approved, it takes a lot of power away from the SEC. But I really wonder if they're going to try to fight it. The reason I'm saying that is because the moment that they fight, right now they're going to start a war against BlackRock. Now, if there's one thing in this world that I don't think is a very smart idea, it's to fight with the mouth that feeds you. I don't know the best way to say that phrase, but hopefully you guys understand. The mouth that's feeding you all the money, all the power in the world, you don't say no to that, right? I think you should ethically, but in reality, Gary Gensler or whatnot, their power ends somewhere. And at the end of the day, they are career politicians. They want this for their career, not necessarily for the money. I think for the career and for the points. But let's say they're in front of a dilemma, which is, hey, lose your entire career because you are acting against us, basically, so we get you out of there, or just go with the flow and take it easy and do 90% of what you like. I think he's pretty quick to choose. Anyway, that's just my hypothesis. But from that perspective, I also think now with all these connections coming in together, that for Ripple, things are also starting to move on a very, very positive line, let's just call it. Because the more the SEC has to give to, for example, the Bitcoin ETF right now, the more judges are also going to be looking and thinking, hey, you see, this crypto stuff is really taking over. It's extremely important. The SEC has been too strict perhaps in the past, but right now, one thing they've denied so many times is the Bitcoin spot ETF. Right now, they're also letting go of that, and they're finally saying, hey, you know what? We're fine with the Bitcoin spot ETF. Perhaps we should also show some leniency. But also, as I showed in a previous video, the SEC is getting, the judges are getting tired of the SEC's stalling. And I guess their workaround of making proper rules, because as a judge as well, it's not fun if the SEC is alleging things based on rules from 100 years ago that just don't really apply or make a lot of sense. Because right now, every single judge is having a hard time deciding where crypto belongs or how it should work, because there's no proper legal body to go over all of this. It's just the SEC alleging things, where a lot of others are saying, no, it's not actually their jurisdiction to do so. And again, all I'm trying to say here is the connections in the background are so much deeper than you think, which is, again, is something we're going to be talking about further in another video later today, just about how a lot of crypto regulation stuff can really be so deeply entangled with what's happening in China. Again, I love China as a country. I think it's beautiful. I think they have very nice people, but they've also got some smart guys over there, and they probably know how to invest properly into U.S. infrastructure and the U.S. system or cryptos in a sneaky manner. They probably got something figured out. It wouldn't be too crazy. Right now, things are moving fast. As I said, Bitcoin is above $30,000 again. XRP is still hovering at about 50 cents. Most cryptos are up, let's say 7 or so, 3, 5, 7, 23 on Bitcoin Cash. Just a lot of juicy percentages. Pepe is even up 44% today as the enthusiasm is back. But let's just say it like this. I'm extremely bullish right now. I'm extremely excited. I think things are about to go so freaking hard, so freaking quick. I don't think Bitcoin is going to be going under 20,000 again anytime soon. But specifically, I think the bottom is in for Bitcoin and it's going to be up from here, which will also be the same for XP, also be the same for others. And I think very quickly after Bitcoin spot ETF approval, a lot of other ETFs are going to be coming in and things are going to start getting really freaking crazy because the SEC is going to keep losing. And if they fight, they have the big guys on their hands. But if they don't fight, it's going to keep getting more and more approvals, all of which is just bad for the SEC. It's not looking good for them. And that's what I like to see. Hashtag fire Gary Gensler. Guys, make sure you put the notification bell on. That's all I'll say. And I'll see you guys again in another crypto video later today. Hey.